Hey everybody, this is Cam Pipes from 3 Inches of Blood, and you are listening to Rockum Radio.
What motivated you to reunite and go on tour again after almost 10 years of inactivity?
Well, one day Justin Hagberg, our guitar player, suddenly called me up and said, "Hey, I've been writing some stuff." He's got another band that he's been doing called Ritual Dictates, and he called me up one day and said, "I've been writing a bunch of different kind of stuff with Ritual Dictates in this past bunch of years." And he'd kind of been going all over the map, like musically with it. And then he decided he was feeling inspired to write some, kind of true, kind of heavy metal again. And thought the more he was writing, he was like, well, man, these would probably be good 3 Inches of Blood songs. So he called me up and said, hey, like, what would you think of the possibility of getting the band back together? Would that be something you'd be into? And I thought about it, and I said, yeah, I think so. Let's get together and have a chat. So we hung out for a few hours one day, and we talked about it and found that, yeah, we were both kind of on the same page and how, if we did get the band back together, how we'd want to do it. And so we went to the other guys and found that everyone was pretty much on the same page. And so we started working on planning to, before we committed to actually doing any kind of shows, we said, let's get in a practice space and rehearse some songs and see how it feels and see if there's some spark and some recapture some of the old vibes there. And found the muscle memory sort of kicked in, and it's like, yeah, okay, this feels good to play these songs again. So, this whole process was like, well over a year before we actually ended up playing the reunion shows in Vancouver. So there was a lot of planning that went into it, and we were very meticulous and very measured and calculated about the whole approach. So, based on how the shows have been going so far, I think, everyone's really happy with how it's going, and, we're beyond ecstatic with the reaction that people are having to it. So.
I can tell you Advance and Vanquish has been a highly influential album in the genre. How do you feel about the impact after 20 years?
Well, it's kind of just a very recent thing now, just since we've decided to get back together, that we're really hearing from people that, what we were doing when we were very active in the early 2000s up to when we, called it a day. And how influential we are, and it's still a little bit hard to really fathom, because you don't picture yourself being this big influential band when you're in your 20s and then even into your 30s, because in the grand scheme of things, we're not a huge band or anything, commercially or anything like that. So, but we've had people telling us, close friends who are playing in bands, that, are you guys kind of were, I know we're influenced by a lot of old music from the 80s and such, so we wear influences on our sleeve, but I guess we're sort of influenced the next wave of traditional metal that is kind of, really catching fire right now. And in the past few years. So it's I don't really know what to think of it. It's amazing that kind of people think that we were ahead of our time, but we were outdated, but also ahead of our time, because we're when Bands of Vanquish first came out, that's when we really started doing heavy touring schedules and stuff. So we stuck out like a sore thumb on a lot of the tours we did. Everything was like still sort of new metal and deathcore, and this like a new wave of American metal was kind of coming up. The stuff that sounded like At the Gates, and every American band was trying to emulate that At the Gates like Swedish sound. But people weren't playing
Gothenburg.
What's that?
That Gothenburg sound.
Exactly. Yes, the Gothenburg sound. And so we were kind of in that mix there, and we were probably not cool to some people, but we didn't really care about any of that. Like, we had our detractors, but we didn't really pay attention to. Well, it's nice that people have that feeling back then, and then are kind of rediscovering that now, I guess. We never felt like we were, or I should say, we definitely noticed that there was people out there who still wanted us to be playing and being active stuff. So, I guess it just felt like the time was right. And yeah, just a happy bunch of coincidences that just kind of, organically just kind of worked themselves out. And, here we are.
Cam, is there a particular song on the album that holds a special meaning for you or the band?
Well, there's really no denying how big an impact Deadly Sinners has had for us. It's easily our most well-known song.
It's an amazing song.
It exposed us, thank you, and it exposed us to so many new ears, or exposed so many people to us, whether it be from just some like Roadrunner CD samplers that were out there, or the Tony Hawk Underground video game that it was on. That's a lot of people, tons of people was like, yeah, I got that video game, and that's where I heard you guys for the first time. So, I won't deny the power of music licensing on different platforms such as video games. So, ultimately the song has got to like resonate with people despite where they first heard it. So I think we all knew when we wrote it back then that this was going to be a hit. I had, before it was even out commercially on an album, like we were touring the UK for the first time in 2003 with The Darkness. And
Wow.
And I remember talking with and they were at the time blowing up in the UK. And all the shows were sold out, and all the venues were getting upgraded, so they were like taking off massively. And I remember talking with Justin Hawkins one day, and he's like, because Deadly Sinners wasn't a single anywhere. We were only just playing it live. We hadn't released it anywhere, and Spotify, Apple Music, that really didn't exist back then. Like, you didn't really have music streaming services like the way they are now. So we hadn't even like really recorded it. And then he comes up to me and he's like. It's like that song you guys played, Deadly Sinners, and he's like, that's a hit.
Yes.
Right? we felt like getting good reaction from that song, like every night where we were playing, wherever we were playing it. But sort of validated it for me because like these guys had some like musical acumen. They were right in the thick of getting some commercial success, so they kind of knew what the formula or whatever is. So I really appreciate those guys, and they're super talented, nice dudes, and they had a great time on tour. So to hear that from him was like really awesome.
Cam, talking about the songs, have you considered reinterpreting or changing anything in the songs for the tour, or will you stick to the original versions?
Oh yeah, we'd never change them. Yeah, like I don't understand the phenomenon of re-recording classic albums or songs or whatever. Obviously bands have done it, and it's like making remakes of classic movies. They're never as good as the original.
Okay.
Even if the recording of the production may not be as good, in hindsight, you may look back and be like, oh man, I wish we could have done that better. It's like, it's a time capsule. It is what it is. And, if people like it, then great. Don't stress too much about how it sounds. Like we're not changing the way the songs were written. You can remix or remaster an album just to make it bump it up a little bit, but we're not going to change.
What has been the biggest challenge you face as a band through your career?
Well, you're always going to go through some stuff, whether it be, we're traveling in a van mostly when we were on tour, and sometimes we run into mechanical issues. We've had lineup changes over the years that have been, really, really test our resolve as a band and what we want to do with our lives. Like, back and forths and like pulling teeth with the music or with the record labels and things like that. There's always going to be some hardships here and some obstacles no matter what. But we had to kick out a guy on in the middle of a tour because he got in a fight with the drummer from Saxon and breaking his arm, and so we couldn't play this show, which was a specific show, was the main reason we had done this trip over to the UK. So we had to just can him for that unprofessional behavior, and then in the aftermath of that, we had a tour to do within a couple of weeks, so we had to find someone to fill in for a tour and practice with them and get them up to speed on songs. So we were on such tight timelines back then that we're jumping from tour to tour to tour. We're only a little bit of time off in between tours, so you got to make sure you're like all up to speed, have everything. I had my wallet, my passport, my phone stolen, and we were like less than a week from going back home, and so I had to figure out a way to get back into Canada.
Where happened that?
It was in the States, in the US, but I had to figure out how to get back home with a passport, and then get a new passport because less than a week later we were going back into the States to play a show.
Cam, do you have plans to record new music after the anniversary tour?
Yeah, I think we probably will at some point. I can't say when, but we early on we've been talking about what do we want? Is there a desire to do it? Yes, there is. We got to start by writing it, but we've talked about the possibility of at some point next year, or we'll just have to see how it goes. Right now our schedules are very, very tight and regimented, and with our work and our day jobs and that kind of thing. Nick, our bass player, who lives in Seattle, so he's got to travel up here like when we want to have a full practice. Ash is busy with revocation at times, and he's got other projects that he's working on, so he travels around a lot. But at some point, yeah, when we'll figure out when we can like get in a practice space together, and when we've got some time to just be like, okay, let's just see who's got some ideas and what they are, and see if we're going to work on them. But
okay.
Obviously, from the get-go, we've been open to the idea. It's just we started off saying, okay, let's do some shows and see how they go, and then take it from there. 2024 for us is more or less a just kind of getting our feet wet again and testing the waters and seeing how the response is to our return and how much people really want to see us. So, but so far it's been better than expected.
Oh, yeah. How do you view the metal scene today compared when you first started as a band?
To be honest, I've maybe not had my ear to the ground as I would have when I was full on like okay, getting ready for the next tour shortly. You know, I keep, you know, I follow some of what's going on, you know, as far as new bands that are coming up, but I don't necessarily fully immerse myself in it too much. But you know, it's just a matter of we're getting back into it, and you know, we sort of rely on other people close to us who are been helping us all along the way since we've decided to do this again.
Okay, and Cam, do you think the return of 3 Inches of Blood can influence the current metal scene?
Well, apparently we're influencing bands like, you know, during our absence, so maybe we can, you know, keep doing that. I mean, really, I just hope that there's people out there who continually want to see us. You know, that's really all you can hope for. It seems to be like pretty positive so far, and you know, we'll just see who wants to see us, and you know, if we can make it work.
And Cam, if you could collaborate with any artist, living or dead, who would it be and why?
I mean, I'll just say this: like Bruce Dickinson's my all-time favorite singer.
Okay, Bruce Dickinson. Okay,
Yeah, he's my all-time favorite. He's kind of like what got me into heavy metal. Like when my childhood friends were showing me like Iron Maiden tapes for the first time back when I was a kid, and just being like, wow, like just seeing the album cover and then hearing the music, it's like, holy crap, like that kind of blows your mind when you're an 8-year-old kid, hearing Iron Maiden for the first time, and then seeing that Power Slave cover. That's kind of the album that really did it for me. But Bruce Dickinson's the guy that really got me wanting to attempt to sing like falsetto vocals and just try it out. I didn't know I had any semblance of ability to do that. So, you know, I guess you could say Bruce Dickinson. You know, he's been my guy. I don't know how such a collaboration would work out, but or you know what would be the direction of it necessarily. But yeah, you know, he's my
maybe he watched this interview one day.
well, I know Bruce Dickinson played. He was one of the first people to play us on his radio show back in the early 2000s. Shortly before that, we did that Darkness tour that I mentioned. Like him and John Peel were some of the first DJs in the UK to play us on their shows. So, you know, I know he's aware of us, and you know, our band. We played with Iron Maiden back in 2006. We opened for them in Southern California.
Wow.
So, you know, hopefully he remembers us.
Cam, any last word to your fans?
I'm really appreciative of all the love we've gotten since we first announced that we're coming back. It's just been absolutely overwhelming. The shows we've been playing have been spectacular. If any of you out there are from Ontario, you know, if it's not a difficult trek for you, we're playing in Toronto July 19th. July 20th. It's a Saturday. This is the only show we're playing in Ontario.
I know.
Or in the area, like for this year at least, you know.
For this year at least.